on hiatus for the last 3 weeks dealing with hurricanes and other things, but we are back. I'm Dr. Benjamin Dowd Arrow. I am one of your hosts. I am one of the top gun scholars in the United States, publishing on things related to firearms, mental health, health and well-being, as well as the social determinants of guns and gun policy. In other words, why do people want to own guns, and why do they support the policies that they do? My co-host tonight is Brett Cross. Brett?
I'm Brett Cross. I lost my son Uzziah in the Robb Elementary School shooting, and since then I have been fighting our gun lobby and to make sure that his legacy and his memory remains, because all the time we hear that the perpetrators of these acts are the ones that are mentioned on TV, and the books are being written about them and everything like that. And I'm sick and tired of it. So everything we do for Uzziah.
So, here on the Cold Dead Hands, we try and uplift the voices of the lost, those who we either lost in gun violence or to gun suicide or accidental gun deaths. And often we notice that the media focuses on the perpetrators of these events, and we try and give voices to those who have had their voices stolen. And to that end, our guest tonight is Rhonda Hart. Rhonda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Rhonda Hart, and I'm the mom of Kimberly Vaughn. She was shot and killed at Santa Fe High School in May 2018. So I am the original school shooting in Texas, and I met Brett not too long after Uvalde, which I knew in my heart of hearts that there was going to be another Texas school shooting. We met with Greg Abbott at the end of May in 2018, and he swore that they were going to end school shootings in the state of Texas, and I knew that that was a straight up lie. And so for me, it was just a matter of time. And sure enough, about 4 years and 6 days after our Santa Fe shooting, we had Uvalde, and that's how I met Brett.
Yeah, and Ronnie, we'll talk a little bit later, but you're also running for Congress.
That's right.
You are running for Congress.
So that's what you do when your kid dies.
Yeah.
Run for Congress.
We'll spend some time on that a little bit later in the show. But why don't you talk about Kimberly? Like, what was she like? Who was she?
Well, she was one of those girls that was in Girl Scouts, and I signed her up in kindergarten because I wanted a link to cookies, right? But it turns out that she really, really loved it, and she lived every part of the Girl Scout law. She was kind and considerate and friendly and helpful, and she wanted to make the world a better place, which she literally does every day from beyond the grave. In 2022, after the Uvalde shooting, there was a bill introduced called the Kimberly Vaughn Safe Storage of Firearms Act, introduced by the late Sheila Jackson Lee. And I managed to pass that in the House of Representatives, and it needs to be picked up in the Senate, but right now I am very happy that it passed in Congress. And I just try to live every day in her memory. Oh crap, I dropped something. I try to live every day in her memory, and just literally try to, like I said, try to make the world a better place. For her 16th birthday, everyone said, well, what can we do? It's her 16th. It's like a milestone. And I said, you know what? Let's make the best out of a shitty situation, because she's dead. And I said, why don't you all donate cat litter to the local animal shelter, Bayou Animal Services in Dickinson? And this turned into a major thing. People donated like 250 pounds of cat litter at a time. They were sending in treats and toys and carriers. And the shelter staff at the time were just overwhelmed. It was the end of kitten season, and they had just been bombarded with babies. And they needed those supplies like so badly. And the shelter staff contacted me after that supply drive, which was completely organic. And they said, Rhonda, we were so overwhelmed with those supplies that we're building a new building. And when it gets done, we're going to have a special ward for the feline leukemia cats and the FIP cats. And we're going to dedicate it in honor of Kimberly, because those cats don't have a very long lifespan, and neither did she. And so I live just down the road. I could walk there. And so now they have Kimberly's Cat Haven going on at the local animal shelter. It's completely Harry Potter themed. And so she still is making the world a better place. She loved to read. She was always carrying around a big, thick book, and then she would bring another book, and I would say, you're only like halfway through the one. Why did you bring the other one? And she said, well, that's my bonus book. In case I finish the one, I have to have the backup.
Gotta have a
Ready
backup
for the next one. Yep.
I gotta have the other one. And I caught myself doing that this summer. My girlfriends and I were reading the ACOTAR series. If anybody out there knows what ACOTAR is, it's fairy smut and romance.
Court of Thorn and Roses. Yes.
A Court of Thorn and Roses. Yes. And I was like 3/4 of the way through like the first one, and I said, you know what, I better download the second one while I have the chance. And I thought, oh geez, that's my daughter.
She's rubbing off on you.
Yeah, it's crazy how that happens though. Like the small things that we didn't do per se before while they were still here, but after they're gone, then we pick up the little things like that, like picking up the book before it's done. I always feel, I'm not a higher power person or anything like that. I don't do the science or anything like that, but there's always that thing that makes me think, it's like, man, this is what Uzi would do, right? So what's going on?
No, and then last year I went on a girls trip with two of my best friends. We're huge Harry Potter fans. We like Outlander. We went to Scotland for the first time, or it was the first time I'd ever traveled internationally. And you can't count Canada because that just doesn't count. Because I grew up in Alaska, and everybody drives through Canada if you live in Alaska. It's just
right.
And I brought a little bag of her ashes, and so when we were on our trip, I was scattering a little bit of her ashes throughout this trip. And we were in Edinburgh on her birthday, which was part of the trip, which was part of the tour. And we were coming back from dinner, and we were going to have like our final little drink of whiskey with our tour group. And I looked down, and there was this 2p on the ground, and over there 2p is bronze colored. And I was like, oh my God, that's a penny from heaven. Like, that's my daughter right there.
Wow.
And I still carry it in my purse to this day. Like, I still have it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I was like, that's totally her.
I know this is kind of a sidetrack thing, but I wanted to ask, so, with Kimberly being cremated and everything, and you were able to spread some of her ashes,
mm-hmm.
how do you, like, in your head, allow yourself to do it? So, like, we have Uzi's ashes. I have him in my bracelet, as you know. And, like me, I'm like, for some reason and maybe it's just because I do not like Uvalde and all the things that we've went through here, but I can't see him. That's one of the reasons why we didn't bury him or anything, is because I want him here with me. Like, we want him here with us. So I don't know how or if I could ever do that, but I'm just curious as to how, because I know a lot of people do that, that you spread your ashes of your loved ones and everything.
Yeah. I just did it because I had her cremated because I'm not from Texas. I grew up in Alaska, and I had always seen myself moving back to Alaska at some point. But then, I was a single mom when Kimberly was killed. I was very much a broke single mom when Kimberly was killed, and I had a very restrictive geographical restriction on my divorce decree, and I didn't get that lifted until 2019, until after the shooting, which was completely ironic. And then COVID hit, and you really could not get through the border during COVID unless you had a documented reason to get through. And honestly, now my son is a junior in high school. I'm not going to uproot him, right?
These last 2 years, yeah.
I'm not going to uproot him. And I'm in a committed relationship. We're going to see how that goes. You know, if that proceeds, you know, then I'll end up staying in Texas. But I just didn't want her in the ground, left somewhere, in case I eventually left the state.
Same.
And, you know, I wanted the ability to spread her around to happier places. Like, I took her to Universal Studios one time. I took her one of the first times after the shooting. We went to Universal Studios almost exactly a month before the shooting. We went in April. We did the whole Universal Studios, Disneyland trip. We took a week out of school, and I can't say this enough to parents. Take the fucking trips and eat the food and screw the attendance. Like, take your kids on the trips and make the memories, because you never know when that will be your last trip as a family, right?
Absolutely.
Get the homework to go. It doesn't matter. Make up the homework, whatever. Make those memories with your kids. And I took her ashes back to Hogwarts, back to Universal Studios, and there is a specific planter and a tree over there by the Hogwarts castle that I dumped a little bit of her ashes over there. And all my friends know, like, that's Kimberly's tree. Go over and say hi. And I think, yeah, she's just hanging out there by the castle where she would love to be, because she was a freaking Ravenclaw. And that was like the best trip of our lives as a family, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to segue real quick, because I think this is important. And, you know, you had mentioned you got the law passed in the House, and Brett and I, we have been fighting the internet over the idea of safe gun storage laws, right? Like, that's one of the big ones that I push for.
Oh, so you want to talk about Kim's Law? Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about Kim's Law.
Let's talk about Kim's Law. So Kim's Law is really cool. I love it because it doesn't actually touch your gun at all. I love it when people come at me because they're like, you're going to take all my guns and you're a gun grabber. And I'm like, heck no, I don't even care what you have. I would love if you safe stored it or put a gun lock on it or put it behind a locked cabinet, you know, like a safe deposit box or whatever. But Kimberly's gun bill says that if a gun manufacturer creates more than 250 gun objects in a year, then they need to include an extra pamphlet of information that says the words "safe storage saves lives," and then it includes the link to the CDC website that has the best practices for safe storage information. And then it also includes, which is ironic because today is Indigenous Peoples Day. It also includes $10 million for Native tribes to evaluate safe storage education programs on their reservations and create educational programs on their lands.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Because like I said, safe gun storage is one of those things that I am a big proponent for. It would have 100% prevented the Atlanta event that happened a few weeks ago. Because in the state of Georgia, you can't even buy a paintball gun until you're 16 years of age, right? So a 14-year-old wouldn't have been able to even get a paintball gun, much less an AR-15 and ammunition.
Yeah. So we just went through a handful of the parents from Santa Fe. We just went through a civil lawsuit against our shooter's parents And we did not come out winning because the state statute, the penal code, says that you have to safe store if people in your family are under age 16. And we did not win because our shooter was age 17 and a half or 17 and 3/4. But in that family, their definition, and then the definition of safe storage is up to each individual family. So if, Ben, you want to put your guns in a lockbox with a biometric key, then that's great. If Brett wants to put his guns up on the top of the closet shelf where the kids can't find them, then that's great. If I want to put them in between my mattress and box springs deep in the middle, then that's great too. But what our shooter's family did is they put them in an old school, like 60s or 70s glass and wooden cabinet. And then they put the key on top of the cabinet. That's what the shooter and his psychiatrist said that and I'm not using the term parents, the adults did. But the adults will say, oh, we hid the key in the linen closet in the bathroom. And so what I'm going to do, if I don't win my congressional race, my mission for next legislative session in Texas is to change that law to raise the age from 16 to 18.
Yeah.
Because seriously, what punk ass kid is not going to go and find the keys to the gun cabinet, right? Raise your hand if you went looking for the Christmas presents every year.
Every year. 100%.
Every year.
Every year.
And and the research bears out that the kids know, like they'll find them and they know.
The kids know.
And so, if you don't, for instance, my gun safe has one key. I have it on my key ring with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Like it's always with me. So they would have to drill to get into my safe. But, if I was just leaving it around and leaving it open, they would find that and be able to get in and see what I had. And, kids are curious, which is why I was really happy to see what they did in Georgia and in Michigan.
And bless their hearts, kids are snoopy, but they're also dumb. Bless them. They're dumb and curious. And they're going to see, oh, what does this do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We love kids, but they don't do things for their own good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we have these situations also where, kids go to their friend's house or friends come to the kid's house and then one of them doesn't leave because they're just snooping around.
And that's why, not to really plug a program or whatever, but there's a program put out by Moms Demand Action. It's called Be Smart. When your kid goes to another kid's house, one parent should ask, hey, do you have any unsecured firearms in the house? And I'm gonna jump on a soapbox here. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. If you are a single person and you're going to your date's house for the first time, you need to ask your date, hey, do you have any unsecured firearms in the house? I just got in a relationship a little over a year ago, and I asked that question of my soon-to-be partner. That actually took a lot of guts for me to ask. A funny story, I was out on a date with somebody. I was having breakfast and conversation was going good. We were really into politics. And I said, so when you're not doing politics, you're not doing this thing, what else do you do? And he goes, oh, I like to go to the range. And I said, oh, what caliber do you have? And blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I have a 9mm in this thing and an AR. And I said, oh, wow. Tell me about your storage program. And he said, well, I don't really safe store. Y'all, I about walked out of the date.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. Needless to say, there was no second date. Yeah. So that's how much it means to me. Right?
And this is something that Brett and I have talked about numerous times, right? So Brett and I are both gun owners. I do not keep ammunition in my house because of what I
Yeah.
do and everything. I know the stats. You can't really use them to defend yourself. That's just a fantasy movie, video game thing that we tell ourselves because we think we're superheroes. So I don't keep ammunition in the house, but I still keep those guns locked in a safe. Even though there's no ammunition, they cannot fire, cannot do anything to harm anybody. They're still locked in a safe because, I don't want kids to find them. I don't want them to get stolen, someone to break into the house and steal them. I don't want to be tempted because I deal with suicidal tendencies from time to time, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't have firearms in my house. I don't want to do harm to myself.
Yeah. I mean, and it happens, right? Like, and I recognize when I'm in those spaces, so I usually have my brother come pick them up and take them out of the house when I'm in those places. But, the reality is that safe just keeps everyone protected, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is that, one of the things we talk about is how if you want someone to break in your house, advertise that you own guns, right? Like, advertise, put signs out front, that will draw people there every time.
Yep.
No, 100%.
And we know that women in domestic violence situations that have guns are actually more likely to be attacked with their own gun than they didn't. So
50 women a month in the United States are killed due to intimate partner violence. Roughly 4 million women have been threatened to be shot. 1 million women have been shot or shot at. It's a big problem here.
I just went to a vigil the other night in the city of Lamarck, and a survivor told her story, and her story was her abuser said, her abuser had broken into her house, and he told her, you're lucky I don't have my gun right now because you'd be dead.
Yeah. No, it happens more often than it should.
And yet, Texas refuses to disarm domestic abusers.
Yep. Yeah. The United States is the most dangerous country for women.
Greg Abbott, just like he said, he would end rape in Texas and end mass shootings in Texas.
The video I did today, I kind of make fun of Greg Abbott. I put him as Skeletor in a wheelchair. And, because we're talking about rural versus urban for gun deaths and gun mortality, and the research is pretty clear that large urban centers are actually safer than most rural red areas. And so, I bring up how following Uvalde, he pushed back against any idea of gun control and pointed at Chicago, LA, and New York. And New York is one of the safest places in the country. They have a rate of 3.1 per 100,000. Compare that to Birmingham, Alabama, which is 63.1 per 100,000, right? It's 30 times the rate, right? It's ridiculous. And yet,
or 20. You're
20 times.
off.
My math's off. It's late. I didn't sleep.
When I'm in a gun violence debate with somebody or a chat, I finally got the chance to meet with Ted Cruz about 2 years after our shooting.
I fucking hate him.
I do too. You need to look up on YouTube Santa Fe Mom Yells at Ted Cruz, because that's
I will definitely be streaming that later.
But you've gone down a rabbit hole with somebody when they mention Chicago with regards to gun violence, and then you're like, yep, we're just done here. We're not going to make any headway.
Chicago is a racist dog whistle. That's all it is. That's all it is.
It's not even a dog whistle. It's just a bullhorn.
Yeah. It is. Chicago is not even in the top 25. It has a rate of 19.7 per 100,000. So, a lot more than New York, but a third of Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah. Whenever somebody brings up, well, Chicago, I'm just like, you know what, we're done here.
No, my favorite thing though is not, because I don't know if I've seen the one with you and Ted Cruz, but when you went up and into Abbott's what was he doing?
Rally.
Yeah, and you got right up. Yeah, that one was my fucking favorite.
That was great because nobody knew who we were, and his social media manager must have looked at Christina and Scott and I like 3 or 4 times. I had no idea who we were. And even Greg looked right at me, and I was like, do you know who I am? He goes, no. I said, I'm one of the parents from Santa Fe. Yeah. He had no idea who we were.
Well, he doesn't care to know, right? Like, I mean, Brett ran into that too.
Greg had never bothered to invite me to any of the after shooting roundtables because out of all of the Santa Fe families, I was the standalone Democrat. And I had been for several, I mean, I moved down here in 2009 with an Obama sticker still on my minivan.
Right. We didn't even have the round table. Like they didn't even have them after ours.
No, Brett, I stand on this hill. You guys get treated differently because your babies are brown.
Absolutely.
And your skin is brown. The majority of your skin is brown.
Absolutely. Well, and the crazy thing is when he came down to talk to us, he came and he started talking border. Like we met individually with him. He started talking border and everything. And then we're like, do you know why we're here right now? And then what he wanted to bring up was, because when we were talking about, we want a raise the age to him. And first of all, he didn't know who we were. He couldn't name any of our kids or anything. And this is like,
because all of your kids have unique names.
Exactly. Yeah, and this was like not like right after, but it was still early on and everything. But then, we're talking raise the age, and he goes, well, that wouldn't have helped in Santa Fe, would it have? And I'm like,
yeah, it would.
What the hell?
Yeah, it absolutely would have.
Because he was talking about a shotgun instead.
Yeah,
that's
it would
what
have.
it was. Yeah,
it
but
would have.
he's wild.
Yeah, it would have. If they had raised the age to own a shotgun to 20 or even 21 in Santa Fe, that would have helped.
All guns should be 21, flat out. I mean,
yeah,
that flat out. Like the you get an exemption if you go in the military. That would be the only thing I would say, right? Like,
oh god,
otherwise...
that pisses me off so bad because people are like, oh well, if you join the military at 21 or at 18, that's automatic. You get a gun. What people don't understand is the process to join the military with the background checks and the medical exams, the psychologicals, fingerprinting, references. You can't have so much. I remember when I did delayed entry program for about a year, and I got a fix-it ticket because like I had a busted taillight or something. I got a fix-it ticket, and I was freaking out because I thought my recruiter was going to drop me from the program. It's that stringent.
Yep. Yeah, people don't understand. I mean, they try and get people in, but
invest so much money into those recruits. It's crazy.
Yep.
And also what people don't realize is they're like, oh, well, they have their firearm. They don't realize that it's under lock and key in the armory, and you don't get to just have it.
They're so regimented. When you go to the range, you wake up at a certain time. Everybody has you get your rifle for the entire time that you're in basic training, and you spend a week or two taking that thing apart. I remember being in the barracks room. Drill sergeant gives you a mat, and you have to take it apart, and you have to match all the parts. You have to put it back together. You have to clean it. You have to turn it back to the armorer. You have to do, like Brett and I were talking about, you have to get to know your weapon with the rifle PT. And believe me, that thing only weighs 7.5 pounds, but it
gets tired quick, especially when you walk with it above your head for like an hour.
Oh yeah. Right. And then even when you go to the range, there's only so many people on the range at a time. You have to hold it barrel down range all the time. It's a completely different.
And thinking about that too,
what people think it is.
Weapons are stored in one space. ammunition stored in another, right? Like they
Exactly.
don't store
And
them
then-
together. And even if you have your own gun that you brought with you to basic, you turn that over to the quartermaster and you have to check it out. You have to get
No,
permission
no,
to
you
use
can't.
it.
No, you can't bring your own gun to basic training.
Oh, not to basic, but when you're in like the army, when you or whatever, when you go in, you
Yeah,
can bring your own weapon that you own, but you have to turn it into the quartermaster.
When you get to your duty station, you can bring your own weapon, but you have to turn it into the armorer.
Yeah, it's turned in
And-
immediately.
Yeah, it has to be stationed. It has to be kept with.
You
the
get to
unit.
carry a receipt.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And I think even if you live in the like in the family housing, I think you even have to leave that with the unit armorer.
I'm pretty sure that one I
think
don't know
so.
about. I'm pretty sure though, if you're living
Or
on
the-
base
or,
at
like,
all,
you have to, yeah, or you have to do something with the MPs. Maybe you have to register it with the MPs. I think that sounds right. I should check.
So bottom line, for the people that don't understand what y'all are talking about here, it's not willy-nilly when you're in the military with all these firearms everywhere and everybody's
You
Rambo,
just can't
right?
go to your platoon sergeant and say, "Gee, Sarge, I think I would like to have my M16 for the day. Is that okay?" And they're not going to say, "Gee, yeah, Private, that sounds like a good idea. Go ahead and talk to the armorer, and you can just have it."
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
yeah, no. By the gun nuts definitions, a military base is a gun-free zone, right? Because only the
Right.
MPs have them, and you're only allowed in certain places on the base.
That's what struck me. It's got to have been 10 or 12 years now. That's what struck me
The Fort
as
Hood?
really odd when Fort Hood happened.
Yeah.
Because that officer should not have had access to his service pistol at that time.
Nope, he should not. Should not. Well,
And he had access to it.
yeah. But like I said though, that you hear all these all the time. Oh, we need more guns in schools because schools are a gun-free zone. But 84% of high schools have an armed guard, right? That's not a gun-free zone. If somebody has a gun on the premises, it's not gun-free. But by that definition that they use, all military bases are gun-free zones.
But we've seen footage from Uvalde, and I've seen footage from inside Santa Fe. Okay, we're gonna backtrack this, and we're gonna use an analogy. Okay, we're gonna use an analogy. We've all seen episodes of King of the Hill, right?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've all seen episodes of King of the Hill, and we've all seen Hank Hill on his lawnmower, right? And he's mowing the lawn, and and all the guys, Boomhauer and Dale Gribble and what's the other guy? And all the other guys are standing around watching him mow his lawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going, "Well, gee, Hank, that's a good lawnmower you got there. What are you doing? Are you mowing the lawn?" Right?
Right.
You can give everybody on that street a daggone lawnmower, and they're still not going to know what to do with it.
Yep, absolutely.
You can give everybody a weed whacker and a leaf blower, and they're not going to know what to do with it,
I'll be honest, I wouldn't know what to do with any of that.
right? You
I hire
you can't-
people to do that.
right? You can't make people be brave enough to mow their own lawns.
Yep. Not happening.
You can't hire bravery in your lawn control, in your grass cutting people.
Yep.
Some people are just going to stand around with their leaf blower and their weed whacker, and they're not going to know what to do with it. Even though they might have a gas-powered weed whacker, and the guy next door only has an electric-powered weed whacker.
Yep.
Right?
It's funny. Brett and I had this exact conversation earlier today with a pro gun nut without the analogy.
Mm-hmm.
It's and yes, it's one of those things that we always have to do. And for those that because we talk about it all the time, Rhonda, y'all had
Some people are just really scared to cut the grass.
Yeah, exactly. Y'all had an armed guard, right?
We did have an armed guard.
Yeah, why don't we back up a little bit, Rhonda, and why don't you talk about like leading up to the day that it happened, and then what happened, as much detail as you want to give us.
Oh
Um,
God, leading up to the day. I don't
yeah.
even know. Leading up to the day. Um, Santa Fe was not super prepared. So let me talk a little bit about being a staff member. So I was a support staff. I was a school bus driver. Um, I had one training session. It had to have been, I was going through my divorce, so it had to have been like 2014. And we had one training session where we had a presentation with like a tactical team that gave us tips and tricks of how to defuse a shooter. And then every year after that, my supervisor, Mr. McKinney, would give us the briefing during our back to school session about, hey, in case of an active shooter, here's the safety. Here's the safety book, and you would flip to the section if you were safe or not, and you would slide it under the door, and you would lock the door like to our break room. And then for the intruder training, he would say, "Oh yeah, by the way, the police are going to be doing the intruder training this week, so watch out for the police. They'll be doing intruder training, and they'll be coming in their plain clothes, and just watch out for them." Right? Like that is so not
No.
that's a horse pucky, right?
Right.
And then I heard through the grapevine, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, I heard at some point that the spring of the shooting that they were offered active shooter training from Texas DPS, but they turned it down.
Well, to be fair, we saw what Texas DPS does in an active shooter, so I don't know if that would have helped any at all either.
Yeah. So here was my experience as a bus driver. Parkland was February 14th, and then it was like a couple weeks later, and we had this thing called Late Start Wednesday, where the junior high would start at their regular time, and then the high school. So that day, the elementary started at their regular time, but the junior high and the high school started after the elementaries. And
Right.
so I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, picking up all these late kids. And I was picking up only junior high kids, even though I should have been picking up high school too. And you notice like these patterns. And I said to the junior high kids, I said, "Hey, where are all your high school siblings?" Because I noticed a pattern, and they were always training us to you see something, say something.
Right.
And a lot of my junior high students said, "Well, Miss Rhonda, there was a rumor online, like through Snapchat or whatever, that there was going to be a shooting like Parkland today." Now, for context, I am the age where Columbine was my first school shooting. So I remember it like it was yesterday. And like instantly my hands started to shake on the steering wheel. And I was on a major FM road and I couldn't pull over, but I got to the next quiet road that I could, and I pulled over and secured my bus and called my transportation. And I said, "Hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but this is what my students are telling me, and you guys need to know. Like, call the cops." And they said, "Yep, we know. Police are involved, whatever." And so I went about my business. And then later on that day, they heard pops in the vicinity of the high school, and they went on lockdown. And that was the end of February. And then I let Kimberly stay home from school the next day. That was March 1st, because she was just like mentally wrung out. She just was not having it. And then it came out like the next day or a couple days later on social media that, oh, that time was just a test. That was just a joke. The next time's going to be worse. And then the morning of May 18th was just, I've said it like a million times. It was just, oh, that's my dog, Mabel. It was just a normal day. Tyler and I woke up early because I had to clock in. I had to be on the clock at like 4:45 or something. I had a gate time. No, I had to be in the clock at like 5:30 because I think, or 5:15 or something. Anyway, I had a ridiculous early start time. And then that day we had a bunch of buses out in the Alvin area that were just like breaking down left, right, and center. And I waited a little bit because Kimberly's driver, Miss Julie, she always helped me shuttle my junior high kids over to the junior high, so I could right away start my elementary. And so I pulled into the lane, and then Miss Julie pulled in behind me. And then I was saying goodbye to all my kids, bye Brett, bye Benjamin, bye Kim, whatever, bye everybody. And then Kimberly walked by my bus, and I was like, bye Kim, I love you. And I did the little I love you thing. And literally that was the last time I saw her. The rest of the afternoon, the rest of the day just sucked. There's literally, Brett can attest to this, there's literally, what is it, Brett? Like 10 to 12 hours from shots fired to they inform the parents.
Yep.
You guys had to squeeze in a DNA. Well, I don't think you had to do DNA, but some of the other parents had to do DNA tests in front of God and everybody.
Yep.
But for us, it was, shots were fired at 7:45. We were notified by about 6. Yeah, so that's about 12 hours.
So it was even before. So what?
Yeah.
Had school started? Like, did y'all start?
It was first period.
It was first period. And Kimberly, she was in art class, correct?
In art class.
And Kimberly, she was 14 at the time.
She was 14. She was, I call her the baby of that group because she had a mid-August birthday. And so she was the youngest of all of her classmates that died. And this summer she would have turned 21.
Yeah. Santa Fe is often called the forgotten shooting.
The forgotten. Yep.
Because we focus on Parkland, we focus on Sandy Hook, we focus on Uvalde, but we never talk.
Being the one after Parkland,
yeah.
Let me tell you, buddy.
Yeah, there was what?
I used to get reach outs in the beginning. I used to get reach outs from media, and they'd be like, "Yeah, Miss Hart, we really like your message, and we like what you have to say, and I'm going to be in Parkland next week. Can we interview you?" And I was like, that's my dogs. And I was like, you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know what town I am. And I think you just lost your story.
I would have told them, I mean, if y'all fly me out, I guess. I don't know what to tell you, But no, so, and Rhonda, you and I have talked about this a lot. Like, I didn't even remember Santa Fe until you and I talked. Like, I didn't even remember because you know how the news media, the news lashed, right? Like, Santa Fe it happened, and then it didn't stay on the news for very long.
Well,
right?
So I found out afterwards that, like, our FBI agents and our police and everything. Okay, Mabel, hold on. Mabel, you're gonna have
no worries.
Well, yeah. While she's dealing with her dog, you and I have talked about this before, like not making Uvalde forgotten, right? Like not
Yep.
allowing the media to just stop talking about it. But that's what they did, right? There were 10 people who were killed at Santa Fe. I think it was 13 or 14 injured, right? And we don't talk about any of that, you know? Yeah, that's what I was saying while you're gone. It's like there were 10 people who were killed and like 14 who were injured, and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it at all.
We had 13 more that were injured. So let's round it up to 24. I found out after the fact that our FBI agents and our police personnel literally told our survivors, do not talk to the media, do not talk to anybody, you will taint the case. And they are like city council, our mayor at the time, the school board gave all of the media presence like 1 week in town, and that was it. Yeah. And they literally kicked them out.
And that goes with your congressional people too, as well, right?
And then people started bitching about, well, why is our compassion fund so small, and why is our compassion fund not as big as Parkland? Why do we not get the recognition that this shooting does? Why do we not get da 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 da? And I'm like, dude, do you guys not realize what you just did?
Yep.
Do you not realize?
Yep. And that's also sad because it's the 8th deadliest school shooting in American history.
But they had no idea. They had no idea. And a lot of them, honestly, for a good 4 years, believed Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick and all those guys. They believed them wholeheartedly that there wasn't going to be another school shooting and that they were going to fix it and all this jazz. And honestly, it took them Uvalde. Yeah. I hate to say it, it took Uvalde for them to see that Greg lied.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing too, is like these politicians, you know, the Republican ones, right? Because I know a lot of the great Democratic ones, but they didn't even want us like talking to each other. They didn't want Uvalde and Santa Fe even mingling, really, right? Mm-hmm. They would try to keep us apart and everything. And I know
they did that on purpose.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They did that on purpose on the day. So this is a true story. And this goes back to how we get treated different because of our skin colors. Uvalde and Santa Fe each had a bill that we pushed in the Texas legislature this last session. And ours was about autopsy evidence, and theirs was raise the age. And ours did really well. Uvalde's did really well, given the circumstances. And we each had testimony on the same day. Santa Fe's was in the Senate, Uvalde's was in the House. Santa Fe started our testimony at like 9:30, 9:45 in the Senate. We were done by like 10:15 a.m. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We were done. Uvalde's bill was supposed to start at the same time. But you notice that we were in the House and they were in the Senate. Or no, we were in the Senate and they were in the House. And I was like, oh, they did that on purpose because they didn't want us in the same area at the same time. Like they didn't want two survivor groups together.
But to be fair, they totally screwed the pooch, and ours didn't start until like 10 o'clock that night.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in there during your speech, and I wanted to bring that up, and I'm so glad that you did. Your speech that day is one of the ones that I keep in my head at all times. Like I've never forgotten it.
Was that the day that I gave the little photos of Disneyland?
No, but that was the day where you did on your speech. You said, you know, as a mother, I know everything about my daughter's birth.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I didn't know how she died.
Yes, yeah. That one has stuck with me like crazy.
Yeah. I mean that was super important. Because I can tell you about her birth story. I can tell you how complicated it was to get her into this world. But at the time, I didn't know how she died. And
Yep.
that really hurt. That really, really hurt. But our hearing started on time, ended on time. We were like one of the first people on that little docket, right? It was great. We took a photo with our state senator, all hunky-dory. And then some of us went over to support Uvalde. And do you know what? They didn't start until 10:45 p.m. p.m. because their committee went and paused their hearing, went and heard a bunch of bills on the floor, fiddle farted around, maybe had lunch. I don't know what they did. Right? Did all this stuff, played them to exhaustion, thinking that they would give up. And I loved what Kim Rubio said when she got up there. She said, I've already waited 12 hours to hear news about my daughter. You think I'm going to give up now? Yeah, right.
Yep.
Watch me.
Oh, and
Fucking love Kim Rubio.
and then the speech, and then so when they came out
and
there,
then what's her butt got so brazen as to get a pillow and blanket?
yep, Ellen
Troxclair?
Troxclair, yep. And
Yeah.
so when I started my speech, then I looked straight at her and I said, "You got your pillow and blanket? You all comfy for this? Because we're not." And then went to town on it and everything. But that was the blatant disrespect, and
Yeah.
100%. It. I mean, we talk about this all the time. It ties into, Santa Fe was a more predominantly white area and everything, and Uvalde is
don't get me wrong, we're
predominantly
still
Hispanic.
poor.
Right.
Yeah. We're still
Right.
like free lunch kids. Reduced
Right,
lunch
but yeah, and then we're predominantly brown here, and it's crazy that even that plays a factor into any of this, because I've said it from the beginning. Had it been 17 white kids and 2 Hispanic kids in Uvalde, that outcome would have been a whole lot different. There wouldn't have been.
Oh yeah. If it had been Emily instead of Emiliana,
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I've said it before to you, Brett, in our lives, right? Like, I knew when they didn't do anything to stop the white kids from dying at Sandy Hook, there was no chance that they were going to do anything for the brown kids at Uvalde, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's sad that that level of racism
Or-
exists
or
that we
it-
know.
or if it had just been straight up Roger instead of Rogelio. Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
No, yeah, absolutely. And then another thing that I don't think people really seem to know and understand is how we all meet after these events, right? So I just looked through my phone and I saw your first text message to me was June 10th, 2022. So that was a little over a month and maybe a half after Uvalde started. And you had gotten my number from David. David Hogg had introduced us. So
I was in Washington. I was in Washington lobbying for Protect Our Kids Act, which was a byproduct of your shooting.
Yeah, exactly. And then like this is how we all meet and everything is one mass shooting survivor knows a parent and then is introduced to another parent and then introduces those parents to each other. It shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't know you, Rhonda. I shouldn't know David. We shouldn't, like, I love you to death. I wish we would have met under any other circumstance, but we shouldn't know each other.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, these are the best people that you ever know, right? Granted, we are members of the Dead Kid Club, but these are the best badass people that you'll ever know. And these are the people that 100%, these are your ride or dies.
Yep.
Right?
And like we tell everybody, Rhonda, nothing that you or I do or say will ever bring our kids back.
No.
But it can prevent another parent from having to pick out what cartoon character goes on their child's casket.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine what that was like.
Oh, I did not. Yeah, I did not.
It's-
Yeah, like I say all the time, like I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to grab your guns, but if me telling my story prevents, just if I can save just one kid from dying because of a gun, because of a bullet, then I've done my job.
Well, and speaking of that, Rhonda, so I'm known as the brazen one, the crazy one, the guy that yells fuck all the time and everything.
Yeah, I'm like a step down from that.
Well, yeah.
Kind of reined it in over the years. But you know what is, like, what I was talking to Greg Abbott during the last election, it's almost more scary if you do it like Dolores Umbridge and you do it like at a whisper so that nobody else can hear you bitching at him.
Yeah.
He was shook. He was shook.
Well, I'll tell you what, some of the things, like especially from that first year, because in the first year it's a blur. Like, I mean, you're running a million
very
miles
much
an
like
hour.
having a newborn. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things that I remember from that first year was you, and forgive me, I can't remember if it was an apple or if it was an orange.
Either size works.
Right, and you did that speech. You were, we were all there together, and you did it on the steps of the Capitol, and you were like, "This is what the exit is," and knowing what happened to Uzi and everything like that, and I'd already been getting the hate mail and everything from people and death threats and whatnot. And so when they're like, yeah, no, that's not what happens. And then when you did that, I was like, that is the perfect representation of it, right? Like it really is. And that is just at the bare minimum, because it can do even more.
Yeah, it can do more. There's a guy on TikTok. I haven't seen him in a little while, but there's a guy that he's a pottery artist, and
I've seen it. Yep.
He grows these really great like vases, and they're really beautiful. And then he leaves them quite wet, not fired yet, and then he fires guns into them. He
shoots them. Yep.
Fires rounds into them, and then he fires them. Does the kiln process in a fire pit. And they're quite beautiful, actually. I'm kind of drawn to them because you can really see how big some of those explosions are, and you can see the shrapnel that's left behind.
Yep.
But I love doing the apple thing, especially in Washington, D.C., because how easy is it to just grab a piece of fruit from your breakfast bar in the morning?
Yep.
Right? And then when you take the tunnel and you're going in between the different buildings, and the security guard looks at you, you can just be like, "Oh, I have low blood sugar and I need a snack throughout the day." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. You went the apple route, and I did the tattoo route.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You know, so same shit. I
want to do, now that I know fully of Kimberly's injuries, I want to do a t-shirt.
Yep.
Along because I want to do the bullets on her back and then the bullets along her front.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, like I said, we did you and I, we did the same thing. You did the apple, I did the tattoo and everything. And I'm wondering if it's for the same reason that I did it, right? Because I got tired of the politicians not listening, right? So they quit listening. They stop listening. They don't care. They don't care if you're crying. They don't care. They see your hurt. They see your pain. They don't give a shit. So when you force them to see the tattoo on your back or the apple, right, then it forces them to pay attention.
So many of those politicians are so removed from the public school system. They're old enough that they haven't set foot in public school in how many years.
Yep.
Or they are fortunate enough to have the income level that their children attend private school.
And they probably attended private school themselves.
And they probably attended private school as well. Or if you're like Ted Cruz, you hire a tutor and have your children homeschooled. So they have literally no point of reference for what a lockdown drill is. Their children will never, ever in a million years come across gun violence. They will never be exposed.
Well, no. And real quick, let's reset the show, but I want to come back to this after that. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. It is now the The first hour is up. We are moving into hour number 2. Welcome to Stories from the Cold Dead Hands. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Benjamin Dowd Arrow. I am a internationally recognized gun scholar, having published about 17 publications on the topic, most of it looking at guns and health and well-being, or the social determinants of firearms. In other words, why do people own guns, and why do they support the policies they do? My co-host is Brett Cross.
Yeah, I'm Brett Cross. I lost my son Uzziah in the Robb Elementary School shooting. And since then, we've been, fighting to keep his memory alive and fighting to change the laws. And, after everything that happens, your world comes to a complete stop. But you also meet some of the best and most amazing people that you'll ever meet because they've experienced the same situation, unfortunately. And that is how I met Rhonda Hart.
Yeah, and that brings us to our guest, congressional candidate Rhonda Hart, who is here. Rhonda, talk about yourself.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Hart. I am the OG school shooting from Texas, Santa Fe High School, May 18, 2018. My daughter Kimberly was one of the first children to get shot and killed in that incident. And I knew in my heart of hearts that there was going to be another school shooting. And sure enough, that's what happened 4 years later. And that's how I met Brett. And we were both agitators and button pushers. And we just instantly clicked.
To say the least, right?
Yeah. And like Brett said, you meet some of the weirdest people, the best people, and you can't go through this without meeting other gun violence survivors because they know what you go through on a daily basis, and they're the ones that check up on you when there's another shooting that happens, or like when any like major crisis happens.
Yeah, and not just that, but it's like, I know if I text you and you don't text back and you're just having one of those days, I'm like, well, I'm here, and vice versa, right? Like, I've never gotten upset if you've ever not responded to a text because I know what it is, and vice versa.
Yeah. Or if there's like a funny meme, or we want to bitch about Donald Trump, or, something like that. Ted
Cruz, Greg Abbott.
Awful.
Or Weber, which is who you're running against. U.S. House Texas 14.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So with Randy Weber, why did you choose to run against him?
That's a good question. So it was 2022, and we were. So at the time, Alexa tells me it's time for bed.
I don't disagree with Alexa.
Alexa, hush. It was 2022, and your shooting had just happened, and as an aftermath of that shooting, Congress came out with Protect Our Kids Act, and that was a whole omnibus of bills. It was like no ghost guns, gun trafficking. I know Ethan's Law,
yep.
And Kimberly's bill, and a few other things. I can't remember. I could look it up, but I don't want to look it up right now. And Poe Murray, the chairwoman, president, leader, lady who will not extraordinaire, will not hesitate to rip you a new one with a smile on her face, called me and she said, Rhonda, you need to get to Washington post haste, because we're working on this Protect Our Kids Act and Kimberly's bill is included. And I was like, okay, I'm there. I had just had surgery on my elbow like 48 hours prior, but I jumped on a plane, and you weren't there because you were grieving.
Yeah.
But I was literally walking the halls of Congress in a sling and hopped up on codeine, which I don't endorse. But we had a meeting with Randy Weber, and he is my congressman. And it was Poe and like two people from Newtown area, Newtown Action Alliance, and then Christina Delgado and Scott Rice, and their constituents, they're members of this district, and me. And we sat down and we started the conversation with Randy Weber, and right away he opened up with, well, you know, more children are killed by abortion than gun violence every year. And I was just not having it. And I said, well, so, you know, more embryos are destroyed from botched IVF treatments than abortion every year, but we're not here to talk about abortion and embryos. We're here to talk about gun violence.
Now, you should have said more children are lost due to you masturbating into a sock than, you know, than the gun violence.
See, I don't know if he can do that anymore because he's like way old.
Doesn't matter. It would have been the effect of that being said to him. That would have just been amazing.
He might need the little happy pill to get it up. So anyway, we asked him if he would support the Protect Our Kids Act. And he said, nope, not at all. And then we went round and round and round and round. And then I asked him, I was like, so could you support Kimberly's bill? Like just the one. Because he had been to Kimberly's funeral, like he had watched us lay her to rest, he'd heard the eulogies, all the prayers, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, sure, this is going to be an easy lift, low-hanging fruit, to use corporate terminology, blah, blah, blah. And he said no. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And then I said, well, did you even read the bill? And he also said no. And by that time, I was getting to be pretty hot under the collar and feel pretty disrespected.
Right.
And I said, well, let me tell you about the bill. And we talked about the bill in the first hour. And I said, well, now that you know about the bill, do you think that you could support it? Because it doesn't actually affect the gun. It's just an extra, you know, couple pieces of paper. And he said, still no. And I said, well, why not? Because it's just easy. And he said, well, I don't want to force a gun manufacturing company to do something that's outside of the scope of their gun manufacturing business. And I was like, that's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard.
Right.
I countered that with, well, as a female veteran, you don't think I should have access to birth control, and you're going to force me to have a pregnancy that I don't want. And he countered that with, well, Miss Hart, you're putting words in my mouth. And I said, nope, I've watched your votes. And then I just became unhinged on him and started yelling and swearing at him and made him cry.
That is amazing.
Yeah, no, it was great.
I'm all about making men cry,
Making
politicians
politicians
especially.
cry.
I almost put my hands on my United States congressman, but I wasn't about to get arrested that day. Even though
it could have been worth it.
It could have been worth it.
I mean, whether it was Cruz or what's his name, like it would have.
Brett knows this. You know how they almost always give you like those little cups of water.
Yeah.
I almost threw my little cup of water in his face. But that wouldn't look good either. But I knew like that day, I was like, I swear to God, I even wrote it in my Facebook status. I was like, I swear to God, I'm going to run against this guy in 2 years. Cause it was an off year. Like he had just won re-election.
Right.
And, I swear to God, I was like, I'm running against him. And then nobody really from my Democratic Party, you know, in my district, all the people I run around with, all my Democratic circles, nobody was putting their name in the hat for primary season. And so I was like, well, fuck it. I looked it up. It's not that hard. You can get so many signatures or do another thing, or just pay a certain amount of money, fill out a form, send it to Texas Democratic Party, and there you go. And it turns out that I had a certain amount of money, a printer, and a stamp to send it off to Texas Democratic Party. So I paid the money, filled out the form, and mailed it. Fucking A, there you go.
Right.
Explains like how idiots like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert can get on the fucking ballot. They just have enough money to do it.
Yep.
Right? Here we are. Da, 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 da. So yeah, it's literally that easy. You just have to have a certain amount of money to be able to run for Congress. Yeah, all you have to do is send in an application. And then I was unopposed in the primary, so automatic win. And now here I am in the general. So, yeah.
So what is it looking like for you, like with the general? Like,
Well,
you know, I know it's Texas, but like Texas is
It's
looking like it might go purple a little bit.
It's Texas. I'm going to be honest. This is a really red district. It's cut that way. Fundraising has been really, really hard this year because, you know, I went into this thinking, oh, it'll just be Joe Biden on the ballot for president. What I had really wanted was Joe Biden to get reelected and then get sworn in and then maybe do like 4 to 6 weeks and then step down and do a transfer of power, right? That was my hopes and dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Easy peasy. But that's not what happened. I went to the chiropractor one day, and when I got off of the chiropractic table, Joe Biden had stepped down. And then we all thought, well, what the hell is going to happen? But Harris was the other name on the bank account, so everything automatically transferred to her. Right? And then everybody was super excited to give their money to Harris. And then additionally, everybody in Texas is also very excited to give their money to Colin Allred.
Right.
And so there's not a lot of money left over for down ballot folks in Texas. And so it's been really, it's really been a struggle, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I think my son might be home.
And I find it,
We're making the best of it. You know, I have a certain amount of money left, and we're using that money to go towards texting and phone banking for voter outreach, because we know that people answer text messages and some people answer their phone, right?
Right.
And you know what? If I can move the needle a little bit and just raise awareness about how terrible Randy Weber is. I mean, this is the guy that voted no on making baby formula more accessible during the pandemic. He voted no on more FEMA aid before Hurricane Helene the other day. He voted no on the PACT Act. He says he supports veterans, but he voted no on the PACT Act.
They always vote against veterans, right? Like, that's what people don't understand.
But he's always kissing veteran ass. He's like, ooh,
well, yeah, and you see that, though. Like, you'll hear, like, Republicans and even veterans who think that Republicans like them, right? Like, they'll point out, well, Trump said that he likes it, and Harris said that she's like, you know, said something negative about being at war, right? Like, they don't understand criticizing the military is not criticizing veterans, and just because a politician praises a veteran doesn't mean they actually care about them, because Republicans unanimously vote against every veterans bill. Yeah,
look at Ted Cruz a couple years ago, used and abused that Marine Corps veteran that didn't have legs.
Mm-hmm.
Used and abused him for his story about, I can't stand for the flag, so you should. Where's that guy now?
Yep. Yeah, and then Ted Cruz voted against, like, funding for all the veterans bills that came through during that time. Right. Like, you know, there are only a handful of Republicans that ever vote in favor of those, and that was people like, you know, John McCain and Adam Kinzinger when he was in, right? Like, the ones that aren't actual veterans never vote to fund things like the VA or veterans' mental health or retirement pay. You know, the PACT Act really only passed because of Democrats.
So what y'all are saying is that the people that claim that they are pro-life aren't pro-life, they're pro-forced birth, and anything that could go to help our children or our veterans or just help our people, period, live.
And let me talk about that too. That's the other thing. Randy Weber voted no to protect IVF, right? So he won't help you get pregnant, but then he also doesn't support abortion. So if you do get pregnant and then you have severe complications from that, you're just going to keel over and die anyway.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that you are running against. So
and then God forbid, once the child exits the birth canal, if it needs any sort of help, you won't get it either. No Medicaid, no child tax credit, no food stamps, no daycare support, nothing.
Right. And we can shit on Randy Weber all night. Same with Cruz, same with Abbott and everything. Fuck them. But I want to talk about you and everything. So your website is heartforcongress.com, correct? So that everybody can go and check it out. And
use the number 4 instead of the word FOR.
Oh yeah. See, that would be better if I said it correctly. Yes, it's Heart number 4 Congress. And so I'm on your site right now, and obviously gun safety is, the top thing that comes down, right? Yep. And we know why. You're also for veterans and healthcare. So it's almost like the three things that you are, right? You're a woman, so women's rights, women's healthcare, veterans, and gun safety, which would be the things that are most prominent to you. Can you divulge just a little bit on your, those three things?
Oh, yes. So I actually have my little push card right here.
Oh, nice.
But I also have on there, I'm an ally, so LGBTQ rights, right? We love that.
Let's go.
Right? So let's talk about, yes, we love a good rainbow. I'm actually going to a pride parade on Sunday because I guess it's a thing now to have a second wave pride.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because it's cool. It's supposed to be cooler.
A spooky pride parade?
I guess. I don't know.
Because of October? That would be dope.
I'm all for it. I've been buying like a bag of Halloween candy every time I go to the store.
I do that too, but then I end up eating them all before my next trip to the grocery store.
Right. Well, I'm on a health journey, so I'm trying not to eat all the candy. Okay. So, reproductive freedom and just women's healthcare in general. So, women can attest to this, that doctors just generally don't listen to us. Oh, you're in pain, lose weight. Oh, you're depressed, maybe you should lose weight. But reproductive freedom to the right to bodily autonomy, including access to abortion care, birth control, and in vitro fertilization treatments. We all know that those are very important. The ability I want to codify Roe v. Wade. We need to have that back. And then increase women's veterans health care and access to health care on military bases for active duty military personnel and their dependents. Right?
Right.
I find a lot of the time that as a woman veteran, sometimes I'm not listened to very well. And that actually has been a problem that's been increasing, unfortunately, across the board. That's another thing. Randy Weber doesn't believe in reproductive clinics, reproductive information for family planning on military bases. And I don't know if he knows this, but if a female soldier gets pregnant in the military, they pull her off of her duty station and put her in the office, which does not contribute to unit readiness. So.
Yeah, I'm sure Weber doesn't know that. It seems like there's a whole bunch of shit out there that Randy Weber doesn't know.
I'm not going to call him a draft dodger specifically, but during the time of Vietnam, he chose to go to college rather than put his name down for the draft.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Bone Spurs, it was college.
It was college.
Okay.
It was college. Whereas I actually signed up to serve, raised my right hand, and did all that.
To be fair, and this is the only thing that I will ever agree with Randy Weber on, is I wasn't ever going to serve either, but I don't act like I'm bigger and badder than anybody else. You know what I'm saying? I would 100% I would have dodged a draft. 100%. I'm not that person. I couldn't do it. Like, but I know this, right? Like, I know this, but I don't make excuses for it either, right? I don't act like I know more about the military than those who served. I don't, act like I'm better than anybody else. So
yeah. If you weren't going to serve, then just say you weren't going to serve, but don't be a pussy about it.
Don't dodge it.
Yeah. Don't fucking dodge it.
As far as veterans go, I'm one of those people that the VA is my healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
And so just increasing access to healthcare for veterans right now, we're having a staffing shortage across the VA. We don't have the money to hire doctors. And so we need to have more fully staffed VA clinics. We need to renovate and update older VA clinics. We need to reduce overall wait times. We need to even things like increasing the parking structures at some of our clinics would increase our veterans experience. If you go to the VA center in Houston, the Michael E. DeBakey, it's so ridiculously hard for a veteran to find parking there. I can't even tell you. You have to plan maybe 20 minutes extra to your appointment to wait for parking or to find parking in the parking lot if you're going to park your vehicle yourself, which is ridiculous.
Right. No, absolutely.
Right. And then going back to the reproductive rights, increasing women's healthcare access for the veterans, for women's veterans. For gun safety, right? Repealing the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, that's the PLACA.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know this, but the gun industry for the longest time has been held immune from all the lawsuits that have been brought to them, so that this happened, like Sandy Hook. We can't bring a lawsuit against a gun manufacturing company because they are immune. And so that's like saying you can't sue the cigarette company for causing cancer to your loved one because the cigarette company is immune. We need to end that crap, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Have y'all went after them for the advertising? So like with Uvalde, I'm not a part of them, but because Daniel Defense advertised, I think like 2 months before Uvalde, they had a picture of a kid sitting on the ground with an AR across his lap, and it said "Raise them right."
God, they even advertise in games like Fortnite.
Yep.
Right, which is a very like cartoonish, bright, colorful, kind of like middle school age marketed game, right?
Yep.
I'm not a video game person, so stop me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. You're correct.
Did I hit that one on the head?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Right? So we need to get rid of PLACA because that would make a huge difference, right? Holding the gun industry accountable for the injuries to victims and survivors, because survivors didn't ask to get injured, right? I also have this pet theory that if we created, so we have like the Affordable Care Act, right?
Yep.
I have this pet theory that if we created the Affordable Care Act for gun violence survivors, because there is no aftercare for gun violence survivors.
Nope.
If the government had to pay for our insurance and our medical treatments to treat us and care for our wounds and care for our mental health, I think that then they would actually pay attention to gun violence.
Yep.
If they had to pay for somebody's lead treatment medication every year for the rest of their lives, I think they would start to pay mind.
Shit would tone the fuck down quick, like, and in a hurry, because
Yep.
that's all they care about.
Yes.
Like you're 100%
Because
right. They only care about their money.
they don't want to regulate the gun, right? So I think if they had to deal with the aftermath of the gun, then they might start to pay attention. And this is really going off in left field here. But if that money came from your NRA donations, if you had to surrender your NRA donations to pay for that medical care, then I think you would really start to pay attention as well.
100%.
But that's just me. That's way off in left field.
No, I agree.
Like, if your state suffered a mass shooting and you as the senator accepted money from the NRA and the gun lobby, and you had to forfeit your donations to pay for the medical treatment,
And even then some.
and I'm just going to pick a name here, and you had to pay for the medical care of Mr. Reyes for the rest of his life, you would probably pay attention.
Absolutely.
Right? Because someone asked me the other day, I was at an event, and I was at a painting party, and a teacher asked me, "Hey Rhonda, do you know that teacher from Uvalde, that Mr. Reyes, did he get retirement and full benefits from the Teachers Association from Texas?" And I said, "I would bet you not."
I don't know, but I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure no.
I'm pretty sure not. No. Right.
I'm pretty sure no.
Right. The alternate of this is things like Senator Roland Gutierrez brought this up. He tried to tack this on as a rider to a couple of bills last session. Kind of an alternate spin-off idea is that if your child or family member is injured or killed in a school shooting in your district, then, especially in Texas, then you should not have to pay property taxes for that school district for the rest of the time that you live in the district, right? Yeah. Because that district failed to provide safety for your loved one, right? So you shouldn't have to contribute to their funding anymore.
See, I couldn't get behind that one though, because Republicans already look for reasons to cut education funding. And that would just hurt teachers and curriculum and the students. I do like the idea of making the senators and representatives pay for it. And I think we should pass that as a law. Like if they,
or like anybody read The Hunger Games?
Yes.
Right, The Hunger Games. The victors come back from the games, and they get to live in the victors' village.
Yep.
After you suffer a mass shooting, you submit your lease agreement or your mortgage statement to the government, and they pay your rent for 2 years.
No. I think it should be permanent. Just that, because I think if it starts tacking on too much and it becomes too much, like, and it has to be diverted from pet projects, right? Like whether that's defense contractors or other things, I think then all those other industries will jump in and be like, oh, fuck this. No, pass laws to get rid of, I bet
Brett can attest to this, and I can certainly. I was a school bus driver when my shooting happened, and I can no longer drive a school bus. I have bounced around from a lot of different employments, and I'm currently back in school for a political science degree. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with it, but it's hard to go back to work after you've gone through a mass shooting like this. And
100%.
You need to find a job that's really flexible and very understanding of your trauma and when you need to go to Washington or Austin to lobby for this cause or that cause. And you need something that's very, very flexible. And there needs to be almost a fund for emergency services for gun violence families.
So I know that
A young man a few years ago that's a survivor from Columbine was paralyzed in a wheelchair, and he had to do a GoFundMe, I think, to save his house. Like, how wrong is that? He didn't ask to be in a chair, but he was having to do a GoFundMe to save his house. The government should have stepped in and helped him.
I know that Senator Gutierrez has had tried to push a bill to where you get like $7 million from the state, right? Because Texas is sitting on a $34 billion surplus, right? And this is how we crack down on it. I think he pushed for like 7.7 million or something like that per each family, which is along the same lines as, you know, everything that you've been saying. Like, you're right. I wasn't able to go back to wind turbines. You know, that's me climbing 300 feet in the air and me being on the side of a turbine with the
not
thoughts.
Conducive. Not conducive.
And with the thoughts that you never know if it's going to be a good, an all right day or not. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so just one step, right? I mean, it's faster and easier than taking a toaster bath, you know?
There it is. So I was wondering which one of us was going to get to it first.
I got it.
No,
but yeah, and so I've had to change everything that I do, and now I do a nonprofit. I do, several things. TikTok all the time, and you get some characters in there like a guy named Muse who has marbles in his mouth and you can't hear him, so you say fuck you and fuck you Muse and you boot him and everything like that. But I mean, that's neither here nor there, but yeah, it changes your life completely.
Yeah, it does. You refer to the shooting as the before times. Yep. Anyway, so back to one of my last ones is LGBTQIA rights. We know, I mean, this is just a stone's throw. If they're coming for the reproductive freedoms the way that they are, the next thing that they're going to start coming for is the gay rights. Right?
Absolutely.
So I defend marriage equality, defending power of attorney for same-sex couples, gender affirming care, transgender rights, because they're coming for that in Texas.
Yep.
Anti-bullying legislation and violence prevention.
Real quick to touch on, because this is what gets thrown around a lot right now because of Tim Walz or whatever. But when people are talking about, the tampons in the boys' restrooms and everything, Rhonda, what else are tampons good for in school scenarios? Is it when kids are getting shot at?
Kids are getting shot at. And you can also, our wrestling team in high school used to use them for nosebleeds.
Yep.
Yes. Hold on, my son is home. Yes. Oh, cute. Okay, I'm doing a radio show right now, so can I circle back to you?
I'm just gonna go to bed.
Okay, I love you.
Tell him I said what's up.
Brett says what's up.
Oh, hi, Brett. How are you?
I'm good, brother.
Radio show.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hi, guys. You want to come in?
Not really.
Mario, come on. Get up. Hey.
But yeah, it's. I know it always turns back to. Go ahead.
Back to the tampons in school. The boy might have a sister or a friend that might need a tampon,
or a girlfriend, or
a girlfriend. My son has a girlfriend, and I have tampons and pads in my bathroom because I want him to be a good person and just know what that stuff is.
Oh yeah. Well, and the conversation I get on that a lot too is when they're like, well, why do the boys need them? And I'm like, did you have a mom? Yeah. Did you use the restroom? Yeah. So you grew up with tampons
already in there
in your bathroom. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Boys are going to play with them?
They're going to flush them down the toilet?
Like it's so wild. They're so worried about that.
You know
Just
what my
popping them and shit.
You know what my son did is he popped it in a water bottle to see how much water it would absorb.
I kind of want to do that now.
I just thought about it now that he walked in the door.
But right, like, and that's the worst thing that's gonna happen. Hey, did your son doing that? Did it turn him trans? No.
Or you know what? Halloween is in a couple weeks. What's the worst thing they're gonna do? Take some googly eyes and make some Halloween decor?
Some ghosts. Yeah. Exactly. But they're so terrified of that. They're so terrified of that. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Oh my stars. I can't even.
Yeah.
Just
but you're right. They're gonna go for the LGBTQ.
They are
100% next.
Yep, they are 100% coming for our gay sisters and misters.
100%.
Yep.
So what you're saying, and everything that you've talked about and everything, you're for people living, people having a decent life, people being accepted, and most importantly, there being love in this world, in a world that is so dark for you, is so dark for me, because we've experienced these things, and all you want to do is push more love into this world, whereas others, i.e. Randy Weber, wants to make the world darker.
You can't see it, but right here, I guess to my left, is the Girl Scout law. The Girl Scout promise, and the last line is make the world a better place. And that's literally all I'm trying to do, is just make the world a better place.
Make it better than it was when we came in, right? That's all we can do.
That the Girl Scouts leave a place better than you found it.
100%.
I mean, it's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery.
No, and that's the thing too, and we talk about this all the time. I'm so sick and tired of like career politicians, right? That
100%.
They don't care about us.
Doesn't Mark Twain say that politicians and dirty diapers should be changed often and for the same reason?
I hadn't heard that, but I like it.
My social media lady put that out just recently.
I like that. 100%. I like that. But I agree, right? And it's we need more people, like, not to go back to me, but you remember when this first happened, and I wore my work clothes around, my jeans, my t-shirts, my hat forward and everything. I wore my work boots still all the time and everything. I was who they wanted me to be. And nobody listened. The politicians didn't listen. People didn't listen. It wasn't until I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to be 100% authentically me, right? And I showed that I have tattoos and I have piercings and rings and fingernail polish and everything like that. And I said, Greg Abbott is chicken shit, is when people started listening, because people are tired of politicians. They want people like you in office, Rhonda. Somebody that is real, someone that is genuine, somebody that isn't just doing this to line their pockets, because it ain't about money to you. It's about making the world a better, safer place. 100%. And that's all there is to it.
And for the record, I totally support term limits. We need term limits. Look at Mitch McConnell. He was stroking out on TV I would want to say the other day, but
he's done it so much that it's hard to like pinpoint a time.
You've seen him have his little mini seizures, right?
Yeah. Like true cognitive decline, and the problem is that.
Have you guys seen? It was from today because I sent it to my brother. He lives in Arizona. Have you seen what Donald Trump called Arizonans today?
No.
In Arizona. Oh, yeah, you need to look it up.
What do you say?
His teleprompter broke in Arizona, and he couldn't make up a word. He didn't know what the word was for Arizona residents. Hold on. I'm just going to find it on TikTok, and I'm going to play it on...
I know that he had a bus take people to wherever the fuck he was at.
And he ditched him in Coachella in the desert.
And then it was a 2-hour walk back.
Probably no water.
No, absolutely not. But that just goes to show
Okay, hold
him
on.
and those of his ilk are the same.
Hold on.
Oh, beautiful. Also, we have many Azerasians in our room. Donald Trump is in Arizona.
Azerasians?
He called them Azerasians.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Not
They're-
Arizonians, not Arizonians, not anything that is close.
Azerasians.
My God.
Azerations.
And is Weber a Trumper?
Yes.
That makes sense. Make sense.
Randy Weber is also an insurrectionist light. He is not the guy that was in the Mark Meadows group chat, but he is one of the 146 members of the GOP and one of the Texas seditious 14 voted no to certify the election results of 2020. And we all know that delay of certification gave the rioters just enough time to get from point A to point B and have the ability to storm the Capitol like they did. And then someone asked me on Saturday, did Randy Weber give any tours prior to the Capitol being stormed? And I'm not sure, because I can attest that at that time during COVID, you needed to have a valid reason to be inside of the Capitol buildings, inside of the Senate or House offices or anything like that. You had to have a staffer come down and check you in. And I'm not sure if Randy Weber gave any tours. It would be very interesting to see if he did. But he also voted no on forming the committee to investigate the riots. So there is that.
So just an all-around shithole. And I didn't go to into the Capitol area during like COVID at its heights. But even when we first started going in 2022, we had to get people to come down and grab us and everything. It's since loosened up.
It's still a
Since
process.
then.
Yeah.
It's loosened up just a little bit, but yeah. So
And you know, and I'll say this: I've gone to the Capitol. I went in 2019 after the big closure. Remember, not the closure, the big government shutdown where the Coast Guard wasn't getting paid and the TSA. Remember?
right.
And I've been that far into Speaker Pelosi's office at the time. Like there was a great big Democratic reception and food and all this. And you have to have somebody escort you back there to know how to go. And then again in 22, when we were celebrating the passing of the Protect Our Kids Act, we were all the way back with Representative De La Rosa. And I got lost going to the bathroom twice. I got lost going to the bathroom. So you have to know how to get back there. You have to have an escort, right? Like you have to have an intern walk you around through the hallways. It's like being in a casino back there.
Yeah.
The carpet's all the same. You know, they don't have a lot of windows. It's like that way for a reason. So I think January 6th was an inside job.
Wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised.
I do. I want to see the sign-in records as to who gave tours the week prior.
That would be interesting. While we're on the topic of Congress people though and everything, I know we had a passing this year that rocked me, and I'm sure it rocked you as well.
Oh, I cried.
Me too. I've never.
Yep.
I mean, Sheila Jackson Lee was just the
friend.
most amazing human being ever. I don't take many pictures with politicians or have pictures taken of me with politicians. And you know how it is. We know all of them. We go into their offices. I mean, we know the offices that we can chill all day and everything. We know the offices that are going to kick us out right away. But Sheila Jackson Lee was just a one-of-a-kind individual that it literally broke my heart when she passed.
Yep.
And I know that when we were originally going to get you on to do the show was actually the day that you were going to the
her lying in state
viewing. Yeah.
I remember I had her personal cell phone number. She had given it to me. And I remember texting her when she announced that she had pancreatic cancer. And then when she died, it was, God, only 5.5 weeks or 6 weeks. Yeah, I knew it would be quick because my grandfather died of the same illness when I was younger. And that one hit hard.
Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately,
because-
pancreatic cancer is one of those that's not a good thing to get diagnosed with.
No.
There's
Yeah,
And she was just, like I said, I can't say it enough. She was just an amazing human being. She fought for firearm reform, for gun reform. She fought for women's rights. She fought for everything that you could possibly think of.
Santa Fe and Uvalde, we weren't even in her district,
Mm-mm.
but she knew us as people, as survivors. She always had kind words for us when we bumped into her in the Capitol or at an event. Like when I was at a Beto event, she always had like a squeeze on the shoulder for me.
The biggest, best hugs. Yep.
Yep.
Always knew your name, knew your kid's name.
Yep. Or if we were in the same hearing room in Congress, she, would send a staffer down, and he would say, I want to make sure, my boss wants to make sure she gets your child's name right. Please make sure, spell the name for me and whatever. She was just a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. So unfortunately, we've lost a great one in Congress, but we have the opportunity to get another great one in Congress, which is Rhonda Hart. 100%. No, and Rhonda, you know me.
Thank you.
I don't say shit unless I mean it. I call it like it is, and I support you so much. Not just as a congressperson or a future congressperson, but as a person, as family. Me and Nikki, we have so much love for you and your son and Kimberly. I feel like we know Kimberly because of you. And I can't think of a better person.
You can't look. I think we're trauma bonded by that trip through the mountains last summer in that doggone bus.
Yeah. That was rough.
Never again.
Nope. Never.
Absolutely not. Let me tell you, I wanted to get off that bus. I almost stayed in Uvalde that night because I was done. I was so hot and sweaty.
Oh, yeah.
And I almost cried. And I thought, you know what? I can't let these guys down because I'm the only one that knows how to drive that bus through these mountains.
So I drove it this year. I went
Oh
on
my
the
God!
tour.
Absolutely not. No.
I did. I drove it from a little bit outside of Austin to like close to Arkansas. Yeah. I drove the bus, which is awesome. I love it to death. But yeah, that winding shit from Uvalde to El Paso,
It was
on a bus. That's wild.
It was Uvalde to Fort Stockton, but I did the winding stuff through the mountains.
Yep, absolutely.
But I just remember stopping at that gas station, wherever it was, and those hot dogs were free that night, and I was like, that was the best damn hot dog I'd ever had.
Yep. And for those that don't know what she's talking about is, so you went from Santa Fe to Austin, right?
Yep.
On the bus. And then from Austin, we met up in Austin with all of y'all. It changed the rep, Manny and Patricia from Parkland. And then we did an event here in Uvalde that the bus came down. And then you and joined the bus and went up to El Paso for another event, and where Beto was there and everything like that. So there's different groups and everything like that. We're closer to some than we are others. Like Rhonda here, Manny and Patricia are family to me as well and everything. And it's just, we shouldn't, like I said, we said all the time, we shouldn't know each other, but we do. And so we all have each other's backs. And you're not, like I said, I can't think of a better person to actually get in and be in Congress and actually make changes for the better.
Yep. And I just remember that trip too, because that was the first time that Manny and you and I had all been in the same turf all at the same time. And I was like, "Ooh, these are my top three, like the top three agitators."
I'm surprised we didn't get into a whole lot more shit than we did.
I know, right?
I'm really surprised.
I think we were all too tired.
Oh, absolutely. It was 107 that day, and we did that thing in Uvalde. It was rough. But since it is 9:50, we're gonna go ahead and wind down. So, Rhonda, if you want to give any closing thoughts or anything that you need to say that you haven't, or anything that you want.
Let's see. If anybody wants to follow my shenanigans on Twitter, sometimes I have really funny moments. You can follow me at Kim's Mom and then number 3. And then I'm on TikTok too. I think it's, oh God, I don't even know my own TikTok handle because...
I think I just found it and added it. It is, hold on, let me go back in now and...
Because I have a lady that does my TikTok for me.
Rhonda Hart, Texas 14.
Okay, there you go. Hey!
So I just followed it.
And then my Instagram is Heart for Congress.
As well as heartforcongress.com.
Yep, and heartforcongress.com. Yep. So yeah, you can follow me on all those platforms. One of these days, maybe next time, they'll be all the same. But Kim's Mom 3 on Twitter is where I like to talk trash a lot about a lot of politicians. And when I'm not running, the trash will be more frequent.
100%.
Because, when you've been through this and you've been down to the deepest pit of despair, you tend to give no fucks about what people say.
100%.
Right?
100%. Because we've heard it all. We've heard the death threats. We've heard the conspiracies. We've heard
I haven't got death threats. You got
no?
Really? I get death threats.
I have not got death threats. But I've had a lot of people, in the beginning it was a lot of, how dare you stand on your daughter's grave and try to take my guns? And I was like, well, first of all, she's cremated. So there's that. And I don't want to take your gun.
Just hitting them with truth, cold, honest truth.
And then I was like, oh, but look, here's her urn.
Yep, same. With Uzziah in here.
Ooh, you want to see Uzi dance?
Yep, exactly. But yeah, I get death threats.
You know what we did when the last day we were in trial? It was closing arguments. The three of us, the 3 moms that had our kids cremated, we brought our urns to court. We just lined them up on the, how there's the little mini wall. We just lined them up on the little mini wall, and it was take your kid to work day.
And made them look.
We made the shooters adults look at our urns, and then they started crying.
Oh, it took that.
That's the time that they really started crying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that we didn't talk about our shooters hardly at all. Thank God.
Yeah.
Gold star. Look. Gold star.
Yeah, we don't do the shooters here. So, Brett, you want to give your final thoughts?
Yeah. Like I said, there are people that come into this world, or that you find out about after one of these tragedies take place, and they are some of the most strongest, resilient people ever. And Rhonda's one of them. And like I said earlier, changing the world for the better, for the good, to bring more love and light into this world and less darkness and hatred. And, that's what we need. That's what we need, because there's too much darkness. There's too much hatred. There's too much, like I said just a minute ago, the death threats, this is a hoax or this and that and everything. And it's hard to deal with, but at the same time, when you have people like Rhonda that is like, look, I'm taking a step forward and I am going to do what is best for everyone, because running for something like this, you have to put yourself to the side, the grieving process never ends, and so you are putting, others before you, which is something that doesn't happen. All of these politicians run because they want the notoriety, they want the money, they want the connections, they want this and they want that, and you want a better world for children so you don't have to meet another parent like you met me. You don't want to have to see another child go through the same thing that Kimberly did or that Uzziah did. And that is the type of people that we need in the running for office, period. We need less Randy Webers and we need more Rhonda Harps.
Oh, thank you. Might have something coming out of my eye.
Aw.
Aw.
Well, we have wound down to the end. So for my final thought, I will only say this. Fuck Ted Cruz. Fuck
Yeah.
Greg
Fuck
Abbott.
Ted Cruz.
Fuck
Greg Abbott.
Ron DeSantis.
Fuck Ron DeSantis.
Okay.
Fuck Randy Weber.
Yep.
No, I don't want to do that. I just hope they step on a whole bunch of Legos with bare feet and maybe get crotch lice or something. Yeah, crotch lice would be good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Or
there
I
are
hope
lots
they're-
of things that could happen to them.
Or maybe they could get a batch of really bad Taco Cabana, and it comes out. Yes, literally that part, and it comes out both ends.
Oh, yeah.
And on that note, we will close her out.
Thank you.
So thank you all for
if
joining
you have
us.
guns, my final thoughts are: if you have guns and you have little people in your house, lock up your guns, because you're not allowed to lock up the little people. The CPS will get involved.
So we'll close out. Thank you all for listening and for sticking around. This has been Stories from the Cold Dead Hands. We will be back next week. Hopefully there will come a day where we have no more stories to tell. But until then, signing off.